Have you ever wondered how it feels to be alone, truly alone, for days, weeks, or even months? Imagine a solitude that stretches beyond the physical, penetrating the emotional and mental realms, creating a sense of isolation that's as vast as an ocean. This is a reality for many among us, especially the elderly, who often face the brunt of this silent epidemic. Loneliness and isolation, two words that seem synonymous, yet they're subtly different. Physical isolation refers to being alone, cut off from the world with no human contact. It's an empty house, a silent phone, a mailbox devoid of personal letters. It's the lack of a comforting presence, someone to share a cup of tea, or even the simple joy of a shared smile. On the other hand, emotional loneliness is a profound sense of disconnection, a feeling of being misunderstood, even when surrounded by others. It's the heartache of feeling invisible in a room full of people, the pain of unheard stories, and the silent cry for companionship. This loneliness can be as debilitating as a physical illness, gnawing at the spirit, leaving one feeling empty. Now imagine, this is the daily reality for many of our elderly. An estimated 1 in 3 people over the age of 65 suffer from chronic loneliness. That's a staggering number, isn't it? But loneliness isn't exclusive to the elderly. It's a universal human experience that transcends age, race, and geography. The silent epidemic of loneliness and isolation among the elderly is a societal concern that needs our attention. It's not just about the number of people affected, but also the severity of its impact. Research indicates that loneliness and social isolation can have serious health implications, comparable to the effects of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Yet, unlike smoking, the damage caused by loneliness and isolation is often invisible, and the voices of those suffering are seldom heard. It's a silent epidemic that often goes unnoticed. The silence around this issue is deafening, and it's high time we broke it. Loneliness and social isolation can be as damaging to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, making it a silent epidemic that often goes unnoticed. What are the factors that contribute to this isolation among our senior citizens? You may ask. Several factors contribute to this growing epidemic of loneliness and isolation among our elderly population. Let's delve deeper into these invisible chains that bind them to solitude. One of the most significant factors is the loss of loved ones. As we age, we inevitably witness the departure of friends, spouses, and sometimes even our children. This loss can leave a gaping hole in one's life, leading to profound feelings of loneliness. Imagine the pain of waking up each day to an empty house, missing the comforting sounds of familiar voices, laughter, and even the mundane clatter of everyday life. Physical limitations also play a significant role in fostering isolation. As we age, our bodies may not be as robust as they once were, making it challenging to engage in social activities. Mobility issues can confine individuals to their homes, making it difficult to visit friends or participate in community events. It's like being trapped in a cage, where the bars are not made of steel but of frailty and physical constraints. But perhaps the most disheartening factor is societal neglect. In many cultures, the elderly are revered and cared for by younger generations. However, in our fast-paced, youth-obsessed society, we often forget the wisdom, experience, and love our elders have to offer. We overlook them, pushing them to the fringes of our lives, resulting in their feelings of abandonment. These invisible chains are forged not by the elderly themselves, but by the society that marginalizes them. In understanding these factors, we can begin to comprehend the complexity of the issue at hand. It's not just about getting old, it's about dealing with loss, facing physical limitations, and confronting societal neglect. The chains of isolation are often invisible, but they weigh heavily on the hearts of those they bind. Let's remember that these chains are not unbreakable. They can be shattered one link at a time through awareness, compassion, and action. It's high time we started seeing the invisible chains and doing something about them. What happens when a person, especially an elderly person, experiences prolonged isolation and loneliness? Imagine a butterfly flapping its wings in the heart of a forest. This seemingly insignificant action, according to chaos theory, has the potential to cause a hurricane on the other side of the world. This is known as the butterfly effect, a concept that demonstrates how small changes can have large, far-reaching effects. Now, let's apply this concept to social isolation and loneliness amongst our elderly population. When an elderly person experiences chronic loneliness and isolation, it's not just their emotional health that's affected. Like the butterfly's wings causing a hurricane, this loneliness can set off a chain reaction of health issues that can have far-reaching and often devastating consequences. Firstly, physical health is profoundly impacted. Studies have shown that prolonged loneliness can lead to an increased risk of heart disease. The heart, a muscle that thrives on regular social and emotional stimulation, can start to weaken under the weight of isolation. But the effects don't stop at the heart. The mind, too, can suffer. Mental health conditions such as depression can take root in the fertile ground of isolation, growing unchecked in the absence of social interaction and support. And then there's the most insidious effect of all, the impact on cognitive health. There's growing evidence to suggest that social isolation may increase the risk of conditions like Alzheimer's disease. The brain, like any other muscle in the body, needs to be exercised. Regular social interaction provides this exercise, keeping the brain active and engaged. But when that interaction is removed, cognitive decline can set in. So it's clear that the effects of isolation and loneliness are not confined to feelings of sadness and longing. These feelings can set off a chain reaction, a butterfly effect, that can lead to a storm of physical, mental, and emotional health issues. The ripples of isolation can create a storm of health issues, often with devastating effects. But what can we do to help alleviate this issue of loneliness and isolation among our elderly? That's the question we need to answer. And the good news is, we have a myriad of ways to tackle this issue. One of the most impactful solutions is fostering intergenerational relationships. This doesn't just mean encouraging grandchildren to visit their grandparents more often, although that's a great start. It could also mean schools arranging visits to retirement homes, or community centers organizing events where young and old can mingle and learn from each other. The wisdom of the old meets the energy of the young, creating a synergy that benefits both parties. Now, we can't talk about solutions in the 24th century without mentioning technology. It's not just for the young and hip. Many elderly individuals are tech-savvy and open to exploring digital platforms. Video calls, online games, virtual reality experiences, social media. These can all help to bridge the gap of physical distance and keep our elderly connected to the world. Community involvement is another powerful tool. Let's encourage our elderly to participate in local events, join clubs, or volunteer for causes they care about. These activities provide a sense of purpose and belonging, essential elements in combating feelings of loneliness and isolation. And lastly, we must not forget about mental health support. It's important to promote open conversations about mental health to eliminate the stigma. Therapists, counselors, support groups, hotlines, these resources should be easily accessible for our elderly, because everyone deserves to have someone to talk to, someone who listens and understands. But remember, these solutions aren't just one size fits all. Each person is unique, with their own needs and preferences. It's about creating a supportive environment where our elderly feel seen, heard, and valued. It's about acknowledging their struggles, but also their strengths, their wisdom, and their resilience. With understanding, empathy, and action, we can help break the silence that surrounds our elderly. It is time for us to take a stand and act to change the narrative of loneliness and isolation among our elderly. Imagine a world where every elderly person feels seen, heard, and valued, where the twilight years are not filled with silence and solitude, but with warmth, connection, and joy. It's a beautiful vision, isn't it? And the best part is, it's within our reach. All it takes is for each one of us to take small but meaningful actions within our own communities. So, where do we start? Well, there are countless ways to make a difference. Let's start with something as simple as volunteering. Many community centers, hospitals, and nursing homes are always in need of volunteers to spend time with the elderly. Just a few hours a week can bring immeasurable joy and companionship to someone who may be feeling lonely. Then, there are regular check-ins. This could be a weekly phone call or even a daily text message. It's a small gesture that says, "I'm here and I care." It's a lifeline for someone who may feel isolated, reminding them that they are not alone in this world. And do not underestimate the power of a simple, friendly conversation. It could be about the weather, a shared hobby, or even a fond memory. It's not so much about the topic, but the connection it fosters. It says, "I see you, I hear you, and I value your presence in my life." These actions may seem small, but their impact is immense. They have the power to transform lives, to bring light into the darkness of isolation. More importantly, they remind us of our shared humanity, of our innate need for connection and belonging. The task may seem daunting, but remember, change begins with a single step. It begins with you, with me, with all of us choosing to act, choosing to care. Together we can transform the twilight years into a time of connection, warmth, and joy.